be told, every champion has felt it. Every president has felt it. Every king has felt it. Every lion has felt it. Every winner has felt it. Every soldier has felt it. Every victorious person has felt it. The urge to commit.
Crossroads, life's tolls, life goes. I gotta win. W my lockdown. You can't rewind.
Hey, this is your host, Sonya, with the Remember Who You Are 222 podcast. I have my guest, Allana, here with us today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Great. Okay. And so just to introduce her a little bit. So Allana is a generational psychic medium and intuitive healer working with people and animals. She helps ignite the innate body, mind, and soul wisdom to identify imbalances, communicate unmet needs, and heal pain to gain new clarity. Clarity often presents itself through immersion and study of nature. The return of the gray wolves to the west has enlightened Allana on the similarities between humans and wolves. By understanding that our fates are connected, we can learn more about ourselves through learning about them and investing in their future. Allana is passionate about being a voice for the voiceless, believing animals are both healers and teachers. She shares her wisdom to help interpret animal synchronistic animal encounters as oracles, omens, and guides. So that's super interesting. And so why don't you tell our listeners like a little bit about your story and how you came into doing what you do now?
So thank you for having me. I appreciate this time. So I've always had psychic medium stuff happening in my life, and I never called myself those things. Like I never had words for it. It just was something that sort of happened, and then when you're little, you think it happens to everybody. It's just sort of normal, right? But I've been having encounters and spiritual encounters and encounters with spirit. We can call them whatever we want. They come in different forms since I was very young. And my mother has those abilities. I have two grandmothers that have, holistic backgrounds and intuitive backgrounds. And so it's just something that, is sort of natural, I guess. And I believe that we all have this, just in different degrees. Everyone has the ability to, it's like ourselves in our full senses, and we've all been kind of taught to shut these down because it becomes like, oh, woo woo, your imagination, all of those things. And it's really just not really fair, because I always feel like I have a superpower, and my superpower is the same as your superpower, but some people don't want to acknowledge it. And then they think I'm crazy, or whatever it is. And there was a time where I didn't really, through my whole life, you like things happen, then you kind of let it go. I think it's normal to have things happen in your childhood. And then, about, I don't know, let's say middle school, high school, you're more into your body, and your experiences of growing up and, all of those things. So you're more into, the world. And then, and this is my story, and I know it's a lot of other people's story. And then as you get older, these things just come back. A lot of my stuff also happens in dreams. Like I've had, highly, a real dream time. Sometimes it gets confusing, like I feel like I'm really there, my whole life. And I also get prophetic dreams and dreams for others. So I know that I'm a conduit. I'm a conduit for messages from the universe, from spirit to other people. And sometimes these messages are from passed away loved ones, or a warning. So that's interesting. And I'm always surprised at that. Like, even when it happens, and it's happened so many times, when it happens, I'm still like, whoa, okay, here we go, So around, and then I went through a healing journey, my own spiritual healing journey. And, mental health healing journey. And I say that because I think a lot of us experience mental health crisis in different ways. I was dealing with my ex-husband who actually had a brain disease, but we didn't know it at the time. And so it was taking me and my family down an interesting path. And so I started to do a lot of self-help work to shift up my life experience. And that was in probably the late 90s, early 2000s. And then I was living in Utah at that time. I'm from California, moved to Utah in the early 90s. I was there for about 14 years. And had to be. I was driven to go to the mountains. So I worked in a ski resort, a couple of ski resorts, and had big things happen when I was in Utah. But I came back here and to California and opened a business. And I'm a longtime hairdresser. I've been doing hair for 44 years at this point. I've always done it, not ever stopped. But I've done other things along with doing hair. So now I do hair and healing work. And in about 2012, I actually came out of the closet and decided that my skills of doing psychic and medium work and healing work were worthy of helping others and turning it into a business. So I've been letting that unfold organically. And in 2008, I became a Reiki practitioner, and it was like Reiki found me. I felt like it was sort of the glue, the open door to help me really hone in on all of those things together. So being a healer, understanding energy beautifully, and then being a hairdresser, being intimate with people, that taught me a lot, and still continues to teach me a lot about, human needs, and how energy works, and then if we're compatible in our energy. So at this point, and I've always loved animals, and one of my favorite things to do, and it's not even that I look to do it, but I'm very observant of the natural world around me. So living now back here in Southern California, we live pretty rurally, but I'm amazed how much wildlife is around. And basically you just have to open yourself up to it. It's everywhere. Wildlife is everywhere. And so I am very observant. And even if I'm just in my backyard or taking a walk in the neighborhood, we have a lot of wildlife. So, and I'm going to, challenge your listeners to, when they're out and about in their, wherever they live, open your eyes to the wildlife around you. And sometimes these are like little lizards, or it's, it comes, wildlife is anything that's alive beside you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that, because I love I love being outside and going on hikes, and nature is I've always felt definitely like one with nature. And when I go on my hikes, now that I'm more aware too, I feel like the lizards come say hi to me, the butterflies come, and like I notice all of it.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And so one of the things that I felt like about, the title of your your podcast here is the Remember Who You Are. And so one of the things that I, really believe very strongly is that, the remembering who we are as humans, and that we are connected to the earth. We are earth and spiritual beings. We are humans in a, spirit, where we are spirit in a human body, and we are connected to nature. And some people feel disconnected from nature, and maybe that's on purpose, or where they live or how they're raised. But, we all have indigenous history, no matter what what our culture is. We all have indigenous ancestors, that we all have been alive for, thousands and thousands and thousands of years to get where we are now. And so we have forgotten, that we are of the earth, and that wellness is part of that. So mental health, physical health, spiritual. And so when we hear, hey, get outside, go do some grounding, take your shoes off, listen to the birds, go put your feet in the ocean, go climb that mountain. This is for our entire being to reconnect with who we are.
Yeah, I definitely agree 100% because every time it really is like my go-to. Like anytime I feel anything, if I get too stuffed up in the house, I'm like, okay, I need to go out and go for a hike. And so it might just be a walk, but I guess I just call them hikes, but just out in nature. And now I can literally feel a difference when I actually put my feet on the ground or in the sand at the beach. I can feel like my body releasing it. It's like an automatic feeling of like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's so many people that I come in contact with, and I'll ask some kind of goofy questions sometimes, but like, hey, do you go barefoot? Like, do you always have shoes on? And some people do, and so, there's ways like in meditation where you don't have to be, your shoes off on the ground, whatever, to, ground. But, taking your shoes off and being on the earth. So like you said, in the sand, in the grass, wherever, in the dirt, is really an amazing thing. We absorb a lot through our feet, our skin, but our feet. And so, I don't know, there's just something about that feels so natural. I grew up in Southern California, and when I think about my childhood and how much freedom I had, and I was a good kid, but I was definitely adventurous, and I was barefoot most of the time, like even on my bike, just barefoot. I don't really know what that was about, why, but it just always felt right. There's definitely times where I like cut my feet, stepped on glass or stubbed my toe, but there was just something, I don't know, it just feels very freeing, to have that experience. And it's so simple. Just take your shoes off.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think people definitely have forgotten, because a lot of people are like, oh, you gotta wear shoes and socks so that you don't get hurt, or that you don't get like ringworm, or like just different things like that. But it's like, yeah, when I was a kid, I used to go barefoot all the time too. And I probably did step on a nail, or I think even a bee one time. But but other than that, it's like a reason that we do that. Even my son, he's about to be 3. He like always wants to take his shoes off. So I do let him sometimes, because I know it's good for our bodies. I've even read, or I listened to this one guy who found out, he like did this whole grounding testing thing where he grounded when he was sleeping at night. He basically put a grounding rod outside, but tied it to his toe.
Oh, wow.
So he was grounding in his sleep. And he said after days of doing that, like all the inflammation in his body was leaving. He felt a lot better. And like, it really does like take the inflammation out of your body when you ground. And science even shows it now. So
yeah, I appreciate that, that what you just shared, because, we're so bombarded with information every day, just pick up your phone, right? Just pick up your phone. We're so connected to technology and social media, we get so much information. And I think sometimes, I believe, and I'm pretty sure we have, things to prove this, that we weren't meant to have that much information on a daily basis coming in. And I think it's really contributed to the stress that people have in their lives, the overload, overwhelm, feeling, there's so much that comes along with that. And so I guess that's why, this message of grounding, shut your phone off when you go outside. I don't take my phone with me when I go for a walk, and I know there's so many people who are like, oh my God, what if something happens? Well, if it's that, I don't, I, I don't know, I mean, we lived all this, I've lived long enough without a phone. So,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure, what that means, but I guess it just kind of depends upon really where I go. But if I'm just going to walk around the neighborhood, or I go to a park, with my little dog, I don't bring that phone with me. I just don't want
Yeah.
it on my body,
Mhm.
and I don't care about the steps, measuring my steps. I know how long, what I've, walked or not
Yeah.
walked that day. But I just feel like it's a good and easy time to disconnect, just
Mhm.
disconnect, and then pay attention to the birds,
Mhm.
the sound of the wind.
Mhm.
Like the wind will come. You can hear the wind. If you're in places where there's trees, you can hear that wind coming through the trees before you'll feel it, which
Mhm.
is just amazing. And I love that.
Mhm.
I get all excited about, like a little kid, about nature things,
Mhm.
So, and then pick up the feather that you just walked over that's in your path,
Mhm.
like you had mentioned earlier when we were talking before the recording about, a bird
Mhm.
that showed up that was different, that you had never seen before, and then paying attention to that bird, and then knowing that it was sort of like nature's gift that day, right? There's some sort of meaning behind it,
Mhm.
for you, a personal meaning or a personal message,
Mhm.
and then you went and found that bird, to see what the bird is.
Mhm.
And, so these things can be simple, they don't have to be life shattering, or they can be, depending upon what it is and what has
Mhm.
showed up and how it has shown up in your day.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know some people kind of frown on AI and stuff, but I asked like AI, the chat GPT, a lot of those questions, like basically, oh, what is this bird? And I know it means something. And it really like shot back a whole thing, about this bird and what it could mean for me specifically because it knows me.
That's true. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, yeah,
And so
because you're building
it
up like a
was pretty
library, right, of
like
yourself.
profound. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It
that's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so here's the other thing too about animals, okay? And again, this could be any animal. So we had mentioned lizards,
Mhm.
lizards crossing our path,
Mhm.
or simple thing that will cross our path during the day. So, a butterfly, lizard, different species of bird. So, you see a monarch butterfly, let's say,
Mhm.
okay? And so you go, well, what does that represent to me? Like, what
Mhm.
does a butterfly represent? So without having to look it up,
Mhm.
you could say, well, a butterfly goes through different stages,
Mhm.
of life. So it goes through transformation. So there's transformation. There's, the egg stage, the caterpillar stage, the cocoon
Mhm.
stage, and then the butterfly stage. So that's 4 stages that a butterfly goes through. So if you're seeing the actual monarch flying around, it's in the 4th stage.
Mhm.
So you can apply that to whatever's going on around you at the time.
Mhm.
So that's like a simple formula when you see an animal. Like, what does that animal actually do? Like, what
Yeah.
does it represent? What is the cycle of the life of that animal?
Mhm.
So what,
Mhm.
lizards, is it a bigger lizard? Is it a small lizard? Is it a garden lizard? You know, and what color is that lizard?
Mhm.
What's its job? What stage
Yeah.
should it be in? And then these are the things that you apply to the message that it has for you.
Mhm.
So, without having, and I'm a fan of technology. So,
Mhm.
not to say, but I'm just, these are things that are simple that you don't have to look up.
Mhm.
You use your own knowledge bank,
Mhm.
just to know what certain animals are, you know, and that's to me how you interpret an animal sighting and what it might mean for you, right? What does the animal do? You know, so what's its job?
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can apply that however it seems, you know, however it fits for you. And I know there's people that, you know, don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't care. I mean, it's kind of cool watching the butterfly, but, you know, does it have a message for me? I don't really care, you know, but I like to go a little farther because I feel like it's just something that I do and I always have. And then let's say that, you know, all day you're getting monarch butterflies that are showing up for you. You know, you could go somewhere and then now you got a butterfly in your face, you know, or you know, and so if that animal keeps showing up for you, you know, that's when I really pay attention. It's like, all right, so I guess I need to, you know, consider that there's a message here for me that I need to stop and kind of tune in, right? And take a nice deep breath, be in the moment, and then consider that there might be something in here for me that I could learn today about this animal and the message that it has.
Yeah, definitely. I love that because I definitely believe that it really is about being like in the moment and taking it in because we do just tend to like just go and are rushing too much to where we can't even like enjoy the day. And I feel like for me, the monarch butterfly is actually something I've seen a lot. And every time I see it, it just like makes me feel good inside because I feel like that's definitely just even like you said on my own knowledge, like the transformation a butterfly goes through. And just seeing it just feels like a synchronicity to, and like
Yeah.
even yeah, it's like all the animals, but I feel like a butterfly stands out the most for me.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of people that, you know, for people, a lot of people, butterfly represents spirit. You know, there's a lot of people that interprets butterflies as, you know, people that have passed on, and maybe it's a message from a loved one. You know, but I think that that comes from the fact that butterflies are, you know, they go through such a transformation in their life, and when they get to that fourth stage, that's that. Well, then they're going to lay eggs, right? So it's at the end of the cycle. That's
Yeah.
how I interpret it, and they're graceful, they're flying, they're fluttering, you know, they're tasting the sweetness of a flower. You know, they're doing what they do, and it's, you know, they're part of the fairy realm in a way, you know. So you've got a lot of childlike things in that too. So I think it's just kind of simplifies things. I don't know. That's how it feels to me. And then the other thing about like monarchs is that, you know, they're migratory. They are migratory butterflies, and they rely on, especially here in this area, so California, they rely on our open spaces. And then if people have certain types of flowers in their yards, and without those spaces, they don't survive. So for a little while, they were on a, like, I don't know about endangered species, but something like that, you know, where they were having a hard time in their migratory patterns. And then there's certain species of milkweed plants that kind of get them, I don't know, for lack of better words, drunk or something like that. They don't want to migrate, you know, so they stick around because, so there's different species of milkweed plant that help them to, you know, nourish themselves here, but then, you know, move on. You want migratory animals to migrate. So, so yeah, that's just, and I brought that up because I'm sitting by a window here in my backyard, and a monarch came by as we
Wow.
started. So, yeah, you know, I get a lot of animals here, hummingbirds, just, you know, here at the window, hummingbirds, crows. I've had owls back here, hawks, coyote, you know, bunch of different types of butterflies, lizards, you know, and that's just sitting in the window.
Yeah, that's
You have
crazy.
to go outside, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I sit by a window right here at the desk, and I always hear the birds outside singing to me. So I always notice that when the birds are singing to me, and even when I go for walks with my son, I'm like, "Look, listen, the birds are singing to you."
Yeah, you know, and so okay, so then let's sort of shift gears a little bit because I can talk about animals forever. So, so the other part of this that I think is important is that when we are developing, psychic skills,
Mhm,
or meditation, going into meditation's important because it brings you to you, it brings you in the now. You get to pay attention to what's going on around you, or being silent, even when there is stuff going on around you.
mhm,
And so when you go out into nature and you disconnect and you're paying attention to the things, the subtle things, like, you could ignore the birds completely,
mhm,
right? But if you pay attention to those things
mhm,
and then start to notice, like, oh, that's a certain species, right? Like I can
mhm,
identify by sound because I'm a birder, I've always liked
mhm.
birds,
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a mourning dove, oh, that's a crow, that's a flicker, which is in the
Mhm,
woodpecker family. And so then what that tells me is that I'm paying more layers of attention to what's going on
mhm,
around me and the subtle sounds and messages, that are around me. And
mhm,
so when you're developing, any kind of psychic skills, again, like that we all you're doing is you're paying attention to the subtleties of the
mhm,
information that is around you,
mhm,
that comes to you. And then we all pick it up in different ways.
mhm,
So you might hear something, right? It's our five senses
mhm,
magnified, and then the sense, and then beyond, because that's how I see
mhm,
it, beyond is, the intuition piece, right?
mhm,
The intuition, but that's also, that's a knowing, and a feeling, but,
mhm,
the subtleties of energy, right? Energy
mhm,
shifts. So if you're outside, and like I said about the wind, um, there's subtleties in atmospheric pressure
mhm,
change, right? When our barometer changes, or like, if you have a spirit visitation, things are
mhm,
gonna show up in that visitation. It might be, I just learned, and I wish I had the information right in front of me, but a term for when you get chills up and down your spine. It's like
mhm,
there's I wish I brought it up, and I don't have the proper
mhm,
information for it. But it happens to all of us. We get it, like it starts in our back of our spine, and you say, "Oh, the
mhm.
hairs on the back of my neck just stood up."
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's like a truth. You're
Uh,
feeling a truth and a connection. So, you're getting chills, or you're feeling a change in the atmosphere, or you're smelling something, or you're catching a peripheral view of something, or you're getting information. All of these things are part of your psychic senses, your
mhm,
senses, and
mhm,
then the interpretation of those things, is part of the message of what's happening in the now.
mhm,
So, and even if it's something as simple as you're just saying a prayer, and I'm saying simple, prayer can be pretty complicated too. People
mhm.
go to prayer for different reasons. A lot of people go to prayer when they're desperate,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But the reason why that feels, is the intention in a desperate prayer is
Mhm.
is there, right? I need something. I'm desperate. I have an intention, and I
Mhm.
want an answer. Please answer me.
Mhm.
And so if we pay attention to the subtleties around us, we're always receiving information, always.
Mhm.
So when I am doing Reiki, for example, and I have a client, whether they're in front of me or they're somewhere else, because we can have a connection like you and I are having, or we can have a connection on the phone. I like to actually, like, be on the phone or a Zoom or whatever with somebody when I'm actually doing a service if we're on distance. But we
Mhm.
don't even have to be together or even connecting. It's just this person knows I'm connecting with them, they're receiving the connection, And so I will get information. It's just something that happens. And the more that you practice this type of work, the better you get at it. And so when I do Reiki, I get information from the person that I am doing the healing for. They've given me permission. They're the receiver. I'm the conduit. I'm flowing the healing, but I'm also getting information when I am, you know, scanning their body, placing hands on them or not placing hands on them, but I will get amazing information that is their information. So they are the, it's their spiritual ecology that I'm reading. And so then I share that with them. And even if it's something weird that I'm thinking, wow, this is really weird, I don't even know what this is, but it's my duty, as a conduit of healing, to, relay that information so that it helps you, because then you get to decide, what that information means for you. And if you can relate to it. What I have found is that over time, a lot of things, if you can't, if at the time it doesn't resonate, give it time, because usually it'll show up later. I just had someone who I gave a Reiki session to about 1.5 years ago, and she just wrote me the most beautiful email that said, "Hey, do you remember when you, told me about, this thing?" And I don't remember, because I'm in sort of a state, but she remembered, and it ended up that. So I, for whatever reason, the Statue of Liberty showed up, and that she was there, visiting or something, Statue of Liberty. So what ended up happening was her and her partner moved for a job, like in Virginia, and they moved to, I don't remember what town, and right down the street from them is I want to say Williamsburg or something. Right down the street from them is this huge statue, and it is the Statue of Liberty. It's not the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. It's Liberty, but it's in a different position, and it's in this park just minutes from her home.
Oh, wow.
So I love that, and especially the feedback of that, because I don't know what that meant for her. And what it did was it piqued her interest to where she said she picked up a book, about the Statue of Liberty. And so did she manifest this move? Was it, and I guess it was like, they didn't say, oh, we're going to go move to this place because, oh, the Statue of Liberty. It wasn't like that at all. It was, her boyfriend got a job, they moved to this town, and so
the sea.
And so it's kind of amazing how those things work out. So I guess the whole bottom line here is, like we were talking about paying attention, that we are receiving information all the time about ourselves, and and we're always creating our future in the now. Your thoughts, right? Your words, your actions, and it's always creating in the now. So I guess you can say, pay attention to what you're creating. Pay attention to that. Pay attention. Not be careful, but that could be it too.
Subconsciously creating.
That's right. And is this good? Is this, is this something you want? Right? So there's power there. And so I just thought I wanted to relay that story because I thought it was so profound. It just reminded me of, not that, oh, I've got superpower skills that are, this gift or whatever, which, okay, but we all have this, we have the ability to be creating. We are co-creators in our life, and we're doing it every day.
Yeah. And so when you mentioned that, the science-y in me popped up, and that's literally actually how our brain works, because our brain cannot hold too much information at a time, but what you focus on is what it'll start to show you. And so when you focus on the psychic abilities, or you focus on the subtleties, like you said, you start to really actually see them more and start to feel into, because I've always been able to feel energy. I just didn't know what it was back then. But now that I like know what it is, and now I'm like actually training myself on how to manipulate energy. Not in a bad way manipulate, but just energy manipulation in general, to consciously create my reality.
Right. And the other thing too that made me think of is that, how many times have you walked into a space
Mhm,
and you go, "Ooh, this doesn't feel good,"
mhm,
or you walk into a space and you're like, "Wow, this feels great,"
mhm,
right? So then you have to ask yourself, what is that? you
mhm.
know, what is that, right? So
Yeah.
that kind of the manipulation of energy would be, uh, in my mind, like, am I going to stay here? Right? If it
Mhm,
doesn't feel good, maybe I need to leave,
mhm,
because I'm not going to, that energy is in this space.
mhm,
But let's say you move into a home, right?
mhm,
You move into a house, and and now there's some energy in there that,
mhm,
you love the house, it was great, you signed the contracts, whatever. And now you're in the house, and now you're feeling some subtle energies in places that feel kind of maybe
mhm,
not so great.
mhm,
So what are you going to do about that?
mhm.
Are you going to kind of let it just do its thing?
Yeah.
Or are you going to help manipulate
Mhm.
that energy,
Right.
by trying to clear it out?
Transmute
Like,
it. Yeah.
there's so many ways and reasons why there might be a heaviness or a stuck energy, or
Mhm,
in that building or in that house, in that space, and it could even be in the land,
mhm.
like a land without a building,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things that happen, that we're not aware of, that would be, the land, and then let's say a house was built on top of it, and then you
Mhm,
have many people that have lived in that house or building. And so you've got all kinds of energies, of the land, of the building, of the people that accumulate in that space, and also objects, right? Objects. So, you go to the thrift store and you buy something that is been used by somebody else, which I encourage thrifting because I think it's good,
mhm.
but and really that's for like recycling, right? Like
Mhm,
it's good to recycle and to reuse and everything, but you also have to kind of know what you're bringing home,
mhm.
like before you bring it in your house, maybe air it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe say a little prayer to it, like maybe
Yeah.
wash those clothes before you wear them,
Mhm,
things like that, do some little ritual where you make it your own, you know.
mhm,
Banish the old energies off of something, because these are things that we don't think about, but
mhm,
you know, these are the things that we bring into our spaces, and then you don't know why now you've got some weird energy or some weird things happening over here. You're having some thoughts you never had, or,
mhm.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
dreams, however, I mean, this gets into a big subject and big conversation. And some people, again, may not believe it,
Mhm,
but I always am of the belief that
mhm.
just because you don't believe it
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's
Doesn't
not
mean
true.
it's not true. No, that's so true, because everything is energy. Everything, we're all made of energy. Everything is energy. And so it really is true. Even if you're not tuned into it, it's still there. And just in being tuned in, I actually, when you said that, I realized a time where, so I went to the house because I was selling it with my ex or whatever. I didn't go with him there, but we used to live in it together. And I got rid of a lot of stuff, but then I sent myself some stuff. And when I was there, I didn't really realize, until I actually received it here in San Diego in my house, that I've already cleared the energy, and I opened the box and I just felt the energy just like woof. And I was just like, why did I even send this to myself? Like now I gotta just throw it out or give it away.
Yeah.
I ended up giving it away.
Yeah, perfect example. That's a perfect example. I've even had times where things have happened and then I'm like, you know what? There's something in my closet that I need to get rid of, you know. Or there's the idea of, well, you just explained it actually beautifully, but does these things in your house make you happy? Is there, does that photo on the wall make you sad? Does this remind you of your ex or who, if you have somebody who you've had a problem with, and if that's true, then get rid of it, move it, put it away, or just get rid of it, donate it, And I'm going to tell you though, I've had some things where I've gotten jewelry and I did have this weird gift. The gift, it was beautiful. It was like this animal totem pole thing. Okay. And it was black and it was carved and from Canada. But there was something about that thing that after a few years of having it that there was something wrong. There was something off. And there was also this other cuff bracelet, the silver bracelet that I had. And both of those pieces, like I actually had a dream about them. Okay. And so and it wasn't a good dream. It was almost like the dream was like, get them out of your house. Okay. Like there's something wrong. There's something off. Get rid of them. So I got them and I did like them, but I was like, yeah, I gotta trust this. Right.
Yeah.
So but here's the point I'm getting at. So I didn't just go put them in a box and take them to the donation center, wherever, what I did was I actually cleansed them because I didn't want to pass on whatever was going on with them to the next person. And I felt like that was important, and so then wherever they ended up and with whoever they ended up with, it was like it was giving it a new, life, right? It was giving it the new energy so that person who was going to put it on their body or put it on their shelf would have that it would be clear for them.
Cleared, yeah. Actually, now that you say that, I think I had actually looked up at the time because I was like, why do I feel this energy? I was just like kind of looking it up, and then it was like, oh, like if you want to, what you could do is just donate it and cleanse it first. And so I did the whole I did it with sage, but in something that I said over it basically.
Yeah, exactly. And with your best intentions, of letting it move on to the next person who would actually love it or, really want this and it would be appreciated. Right. And so, I think that that's just something to remember, that it's helpful because sometimes there's things around us that maybe we're not sure why we feel a certain way about something, or we walk into a room and there's this weird feeling and, but we love our room, but, and so if there's a negative feeling, there's things that you can do to clear that, sometimes it's something as simple as just letting the air come into the room, opening up the windows, playing some music, shifting up the, the vibration, which is the energy of the room, getting rid of things, that cathartic feeling of clearing clutter, getting rid of things that don't fit you anymore, or that, we all have stuff, right, that we can recycle, right, get out of our lives, and we're not really going to miss it.
Yeah, that's true. I do feel like before I used to be more of a, I wouldn't say a hoarder, but I definitely had some clutter in certain areas. And then once I like kind of woke up to all this, it's like I declutter all the time now. Declutter, clean, like I have to. Now it's like when I just feel it. It's like, okay, no, I have to like declutter today. I have to do the clean today. And yeah, the music, like you said, I definitely believe in like the certain frequencies that can clear everything, not just your body, but your your space.
Right.
definitely believe in that.
Yeah, in my working space that I have, that I do hair and healing between each client, so before the client comes in and after the client leaves, in between clients, I have a singing bowl, I have a little rattle, I have some sage spray, and all that does is just, seal the, that is a sacred space that I'm creating for each individual and me, so that then I can move on to the next person, because there's a lot of personal information that's shared and emotion, and being a hairdresser, it's like it's kind of an amazing space to be in because of, people and sharing conversation. So that's something that I've really feel strongly about, that it's important to do. Um, and I do it I do it in my other parts of my house as well. But sometimes I forget, that like do it in your other spaces too, not just, the designated space, that I have for working. But I think it's just something to keep in mind, that we have the ability to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Space, and then anytime I feel like this is important too, like anytime you're starting a new, anything, new job, new chapter in your life, new program, new diet, new whatever it is, clearing out the old, decluttering, cleansing, cleaning is really important. I think it helps energetically, right? So like, if you're going to start new foods, clean out your old foods, clean that refrigerator, you know, give your kitchen a good cleaning. Same thing in your bathroom, places where you spend time. There's something about that I think is really important. It doesn't mean you have to be clean all the time, and you know what I mean by that. But it's best to be clutter-free as much as possible. And that again is just the energetic. It's for energy. I know, like we all like to collect things, but every once in a while, really feel the burden of some of those things. Little things that you just don't really need.
Yeah, that's true. Things that you don't need.
Yeah. So yeah. So the things that I offer to do when I work with people is, so of course, anytime I'm going to do hair services, somebody has to be in my space, right? They have to sit in the chair and I have to be with you.
Yeah.
The healing, I like doing that in person too, but it's just as powerful, if we're going to do it by distance. But I love working with people to interpret any kind of dreams or animal encounters, just to give people insight, and but it's always about enabling, I guess, enabling your own innate wisdom to come through, right? So it's about you, right? So I'm just helping you. I'm helping you to explore your own innate wisdom, and to, give you those aha moments, but it's about you remembering who you are, right? Remembering your power and your wisdom, and I love that, helping people in those moments when you can see it, they're like, like they got it, and then you move on from there, right? It does something, it shifts something, and then you get to move on from there.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I definitely believe in, like, when it comes to healers, it's not that we don't need fixing or necessarily healing, but just to activate within ourselves like you said, our own way of healing ourselves. And because the body it heals on its own in the right environment, basically. And so
Yeah.
when you do that work, that inner work, whether it's through Reiki or there's all kinds of different modalities out there, but I feel
Yeah.
like when you do that healing, it starts to awaken those things within you.
Right. And you are always your best healer.
Mm-hmm.
So, my job is being the conduit and
Mm-hmm.
facilitator. I'm not your guru, I'm not, the even though I do, psychic readings, I
Mm-hmm.
can connect with your past loved ones, even animals. But I'm still the conduit, of what it is that you need, or the information that you're looking for, but it's to help you
Mm-hmm.
to awaken those things and tap into your own wisdom. I'm not a, you know, well, this is just a little thing that I just want to share that. So I have this. I'm not active on this job, but I have been vetted to be a psychic advisor for an app that you can call up and ask for a psychic reading.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's by the minute, right? So there's a lot of pressure, because if somebody's calling, I got to pick up and I got to be on it, because per the minute. And one of the things that's really, really to me very hard about that job is that when I get somebody who's calling that's, desperate,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't trust themselves, they need
Mm-hmm.
another voice, right? They need somebody to tell them, and then they don't even trust the voice they're asking.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even trusting what I'm telling them. They're
Mm-hmm.
not listening, they're not trusting. And I have a really hard time with that. So it makes it difficult for me to want to connect with those people because they're looking for something they think they need, or that their idea of it. And a lot of times what I find is that that's not really it. What it is stuff that you don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with like healing, you think that the pain in your shoulder, you're coming to get the pain in your shoulder looked at, right? I got a pain in my shoulder. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
Let's heal that. Well, sometimes it's something other than the pain in your shoulder that's causing the pain in your shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deeper healing that needs to be healed. And so if you are just addressing, why did my boyfriend leave me? And when's he coming back?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one because it's like, he ain't coming back,
Yeah.
and everything he says, he's not coming back. But yet you want him to come back so bad that
Yeah.
hearing that he's not coming back. And this is a perfect time for you to go deep within yourself
Yeah.
to see what it is that you need
Mm-hmm.
and nurture yourself and be your best friend,
Mm-hmm.
and work on those things so that when the opportunity presents itself again that somebody is showing up in your life, that you are better than
Mm-hmm.
you were in the old relationship.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. And I know that as humans, we get very stuck on
Mm-hmm.
things that we think we want or we should have, or this relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and so I guess I'm saying this because when you come to a healer or a psychic or a medium and you have a certain, thing you want to hear, I
Yeah.
want to hear from my grandpa, and maybe grandpa doesn't show up, and then you get upset because somehow it's my fault that grandpa didn't show up, well, maybe grandpa doesn't want to show up, maybe grandpa can't show up, it's not as simple as, getting them on
Yeah.
let's call him up right now, get him on the line.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting place to be in the work that I do.
Mhm.
Is that healing happens when it happens. Deep
Yeah.
healing happens when it happens. Things show up in your life over time. You
Mhm.
know, um, I can, and I said earlier, we talked about, we're always manifesting in the now.
Mhm.
So if we're manifesting in the now, that means that your future is already being set up.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know what really comes in the future. We might want something. We might have a goal or a dream or a desire in the future, and we're working towards something, so the thoughts, the words, the actions, the dreaming, all of that stuff is important.
Mm-hmm.
But then let's throw in destiny and
Mm-hmm.
fate. And so it's really, it's sort of like I was going to say crapshoot. I don't even know what a crapshoot actually is, except I think it's in craps, right? The game of craps.
Yeah.
But, you don't know what's going to really happen until you're there,
Mhm.
So I kind of do my best to not do predictions.
Yeah.
I just go by what I'm getting from you.
Yeah.
I'm reading your spiritual ecology, which
Mhm.
means everything that you carry
Mhm.
within yourself, within your aura, within your DNA, within your past lives,
Mhm.
whatever wants to show up,
Mhm.
that you carry, because we are so layered.
Mhm.
We've got our spiritual body, emotional body, our physical body,
Mhm.
all these different bodies that we carry, and there's information in all of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, it's like 4 different bodies that we have.
It's a lot,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is crazy
So
how you don't understand it. Well, I will say that, yeah, I do feel like some people just aren't ready to hear certain things, but it is interesting how they expect you to just tell them your future. It is a whole different understanding now that I know about energy and how it works and what a real psychic medium is.
yeah, and I'm gonna say, that I mean, I don't know anybody who's ever, who's 100% correct all the time, 100%. I'd say, like 90% maybe, or like I said about the example of the Statue of Liberty. It's like, I
Mhm.
don't know where that came from,
Yeah.
but it was there. She was carrying that with her. And
Mhm.
then it ends up that it is something in her future. Now, did she manifest that because it
Mhm.
was a suggestion? I don't
Mm.
know. I don't
Right.
know that, and she doesn't either. But it shows up,
Uh-huh.
right? Because I think sometimes that happens too. We might get a suggestion, right?
Yeah. Because I know that with time being an illusion, it's really like the past, present, and future are happening all at the same time. So it
Right.
is interesting to
Yes.
kind of wrap your mind around that.
Right. Yeah. So I always feel like, it's like take the information you're being given, especially
Mhm.
if you have signed up to receive,
Mhm.
you've signed up to receive, and so take the information. Take it and then just let it unfold.
Mhm.
And some of it you're going to go, "Oh yeah, that I got that right away. That you're absolutely correct," But I know that not everything's going to unfold, not everything's going to show up,
Mhm.
but it might, and it might take a while because I've had that in my own experience in my own life.
Mhm.
Things that showed up. My mom took me to a psychic here in Huntington Beach when I was like 18. Why? I have no idea. I don't
Mhm.
remember asking for it. All I know is she took me. Okay.
Yeah.
And that lady was amazing. She has a book she wrote, but she wrote it as in her older years. And what I remember about her is just her presence. Like she was just something very shiny about her, very nice and kind. But she had this stationery with her name on it, and she wrote notes as she was doing the reading. And it ended up that she these things I still have this reading,
Mhm.
and every once in a while I'll check in with it because over the years it's unfolded.
Mm.
The things show up and I'll go check in and like, oh, there's that. How weird is that? You
Yeah.
know, but I don't know. There's something to me very fascinating about that. I guess that's why I do the work that I do. And I do know that by going to her, she sparked something in me knowing that I had those abilities too.
Mm-hmm.
And so down the road to, to actually, turn it into a business was something that I think that, again, a sort of a suggestion,
Mm-hmm.
but it's worked out, right? It's worked out. And I could do a million things in this world,
Yeah.
and not do,
Right. There's so many
you know,
there's infinite possibilities, but
yeah,
yeah.
infinite possibilities. And so, but I chose to do these things and I resonate with them. And there are many times, let me tell you, where it's like, you know what, maybe I just need to stop,
Um,
but then it's like something will come back up and it's like, oh no, this is part of who I am. So
yeah.
the remembering who you are,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, that's crazy. When you were saying what you said earlier, what came up in my mind was the fact that our DNA does have all the information of even this life and what we're supposed to experience. So that actually just kind of clicked in my head when you said that.
Yeah,
We're able to kind of
yeah,
see into that.
yeah. The other thing that showed up recently in this last year was, um, so I was in Reno. Okay, my son plays ice hockey in Reno. And so I was there visiting with my daughter and her boyfriend, and we went on this walk, Truckee River, and then there was this cool little cafe, little
Mhm.
coffee shop. So we stopped there, got a drink, and there was a guy that approached us that was a reporter for a local paper. And he was looking to interview people if they had done DNA testing through these like 23andMe, that type of a thing. And if you had, was there something you were surprised at that showed up? And so I said, well, I didn't personally do it, but my mom did one, and so did my dad. And so we sat down and talked, and so what we uncovered and what he told me about what he was finding with people, interviewing them about this was, so what showed up with my dad was there was always the story about my great grandmother who I believe they were from Kansas, and she was a Native American woman, and she always tried to pass as white,
Mm,
which in that time frame makes sense.
mhm,
And so there's always been that thing on my dad's side of the family that there was, we didn't know what tribe or what peoples,
mhm,
but there was always that story. And so when he got his DNA test, it didn't show up. It didn't
mm,
show up. And we're like, well, why would there be a story like that then? Like, that's really interesting. So then my mom had one, and my mom's family also did a lot of genealogy. And so I've got this genealogy record from my mom and her, both sides of her family, mother, father.
mm,
And so one of the things that showed up in her genealogy and in her 23andMe was they were both identical. Like there was no surprises in it at
mm,
all. It just confirmed, what we knew
mhm,
about the genealogy. But what I didn't know was that in both of my mom's families, there is indigenous, Native American, both sides, different tribes.
mm,
And so for me, I've always my whole life had an attraction to Native American culture,
mhm,
Southwest culture, and then like the plains, like
mhm,
Lakota,
mhm,
Navajo, which is more Southwest. But anyway, so it ends up that it's actually in my DNA.
mhm,
And so this guy in Reno said that that was what he was looking for when he was having these information. He says, I can't tell you how many people would be attracted to a culture but didn't know it was in their DNA. And
mm,
I find that so awesome, that we carry information,
mhm,
from our ancestors,
mhm,
right? And I mean, we know this scientifically, medically, we know this,
mhm,
right? But it shows up when I do healing for people.
mhm,
Their ancestors will show up and in
mhm,
mediumship, and there will be things like unfinished business,
mhm,
or emotion that didn't get resolved.
mhm,
Um, um, and I also believe that happens to a lot of people that kind of get grounded in the earth. They don't pass on. Something's
mhm,
unfinished, or they're attached to a certain time frame, or they love someone so much that they don't want to go on. There's so
mhm,
much of this
yeah.
But I liked the idea that we intuitively, innately were connected to our ancestry without even knowing our ancestry.
Right. And that is pretty crazy. It's funny you mentioned that because I do have my dad did genealogy on his side of the family, and we had like a Cherokee chief in our lines way back. So he had an attraction to Native Americans, and I even, felt it too for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I have a dream catcher in my room right now, actually, but
Well, what's amazing is that I got a tattoo. Like I've got a few small ones, but I got my very first tattoo I got when I was 35 years old. So that's been a while now. And I just, I didn't really know what I wanted, but I was attracted to a symbol,
Mhm.
and I didn't really know why at the time, but so it's a and I didn't even have a name for it. Okay, I called it the Four Directions Sun. Okay,
Mhm.
so what it ends up that it's I think it's called a Zia.
Mhm.
And so it's a circle, and then it's got the lines, lines through it, and it's actually the state symbol of New Mexico. In the
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
And then in the center, I had a bear claw put in there, like a bear,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And so I always called it my Zia bear when I found out,
Mhm.
that was the symbol. Well, come to find out that my ancestry is actually in that region. Okay,
Mhm.
Zia Pueblo and then Moscalero Apache, which those are alive and well, those peoples in New Mexico, Arizona,
Yeah.
Utah, so, and then I was drawn to go to Utah. Like I had to
Mhm.
go
Mhm.
and, be on the mountaintops and stuff, I had to go.
Had to go, yeah.
And so I had this attraction to the Southwest that I really didn't know why. And so
Mhm.
now I know why,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy, but
Yeah, it is
I
so
appreciate those
interesting.
things.
Yeah, it's definitely so interesting when you start looking into all that. Speaking about symbols, I feel like when I was young, for some reason, I used to like the yin yang symbol, and I didn't even know why. But now I see like yin yang were actually meant to bring balance back to the earth now. And so,
Yes, I know. Isn't that interesting? Symbols are everywhere. I mean, and I
mhm,
appreciate, you were talking about your going to get your degree,
mhm,
and that there's the symbolism. I forget what
mhm,
you said you were actually studying, but there's symbols all around us, and they're all. I mean,
mhm,
we symbols are universal. There's
mhm,
universal symbology, and so there's a lot of information in symbols.
mhm,
And I think we don't even realize how many symbols are around us all the time. You know,
mhm,
think it's something as simple as a circle or a square.
mhm.
A sun
Geometry.
symbol. Yeah, yeah. Just you talked about the yin and yang, or so a lot of symbology shows up when I do readings. Any kind of readings or healings that the person I'm dealing with, understands.
Mhm,
Because what I also believe that happens in the translation of readings is that, I have my knowledge bank, you have
mhm.
your knowledge bank, and then the spirits that be, the universal energies, God is working with both of us.
Mhm.
And so then I'm the interpreter, and so I'm picking up on your knowledge bank, something that I will understand. And then
Mm,
I'm able to then interpret to you so you understand.
mhm.
That's how I look at
Yeah. That is pretty crazy because that's how I've seen it too with my sacred geometry mentor. It's basically, she says it all the time. She's like, she said, it's really coming from you, but it's like coming from you to me, to you.
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. it seems kind of confusing or, a lot, but it's actually pretty simple, So one of the things that I remember when I was first really starting to do this kind of work was I would get some information and I'd have to like ask myself, like, okay, wait, is this mine? Is this theirs? What is this? Right. And then what I've come to know is that if that symbol or visual or message, however it shows up, if it doesn't go away, like if it stays there and it's like begging for me to share it, and once I actually share it, then I've done my work, then it goes away and then we're on to something else. But it's sort of interesting how that, symbology and our interpretations of of certain symbols and what they mean to us, so
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Well, I feel like we could talk all day, but I don't want to go too long because then the listeners stop listening. But I'll ask you a closing wisdom question, though, that I ask everyone. Is basically if you could find one thing that you found about our divine nature, what would that truth be?
About our human divine nature, right? Human. So I feel like we are, we all share our humanness, emotions, desires, needs. We all have pretty simple needs, really. Breaks down to pretty simplistic things. But I think we overcomplicate them at times, because we are intelligent. But that we all have similarities and that we are all connected in more ways than we want to acknowledge. Anywhere on the planet, we I remember seeing this study about like facial expressions, on different people from all over, from different cultures, and we all share that. We all share common facial expressions, and to remember that, your neighbor that might seem like a stranger and you have nothing in common with, and we all have all of that in common, being a human and our human needs on this planet.
I love that. I definitely feel more, even with the more sensitivity to the energy now, it's like when you really tune into the energy, somebody could be speaking a whole different language that you don't understand, but you can understand their energy and how they're feeling and just different things like that. So that's just something I've noticed too. But yeah, okay. Well, how would somebody be able to get a hold of you if they wanted to get a reading or anything like that?
So everything is on my website, intuitiveheartstudio.com. I've got a schedule there as well. You can schedule an appointment. It's easy. Also, you can be live with me if you're in the area, or you can schedule a distance session in my schedule system. So it's simple. All my offerings are there. You can take a look at it. And then I have a blog as well. So then I keep adding things to it. So that's it. That's the easiest way to do it.
Okay. Awesome. Well, it was definitely an amazing conversation, and thank you for coming on as a guest today. And,
thank you.
Yeah. And so we will end it on that note, and you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.